This is the new Sony 50mm f1.2 GM lens.
Welcome back, DPV TV viewers. It's Chris Nichols here, and today we're playing with the brand new Sony G Master 50mm 1.2.
He's crazy. Jared Poland, Frono's photo.
I don't need it, 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 I don't need it. But I'm just gonna check it out. I'm just gonna take a look at B&H. Wait, why don't I just rent it? Stupid.
Thank you very much.
What's going on, guys? KY Not Kinda Creative, and today we're going to be doing a first impressions, a little mini review on the Sony G Master 50mm f1.2 lens. Now, this is one of the new lenses that have hit the Sony Alpha line in terms of the G Master lenses that have released. It's one of the most talked about lenses as of late. It's incredibly expensive, but I'm going to say without a doubt, this is something that's worth having in your bag if you're a working professional. And after my first impressions, you'll see a lot of the reason why. Now, right off the bat, this lens looks a lot like its other G Master counterparts. Obviously, you have a lens hood that comes with it, and it has all the markings and all the things that you have that you would see in a lens of this class. Now, I own the 35GM, and this looks really relative right beside it. They could be siblings. Now, this one is a little bit bigger. It's a 50mm, and it does go to 1.2, so you're gonna have a larger element and a little bit of a heavier lens, but it still has a lot of those cosmetic features. You still get this manual aperture ring that you can click and declick using this right here. You also have your manual aperture ring, which is nice. It feels great, it's smooth, and I don't have too many problems with it. And you also get the two custom buttons that a lot of the G Master lens have. So a lot of the features that are on this look very similar to its other G Master counterparts, so there's not a lot of notable things to say there. It does have a little bit of weight to it, but that's obviously because it's gonna be a bigger lens, and when you have a 1.2 lens, it's really hard to make those things small. And what I'm gonna talk about is autofocus. Now, I don't necessarily have a picture-in-picture of the autofocus and catching things like that, but this video was also made right around the time that the FX6 had released its firmware update where I have touch autofocus tracking, and the autofocus on this lens is incredibly good. It's incredibly sharp, and I use this for an interview angle where it stayed on 99.99% of the time. Now, this lens from a color perspective has really, really nice color rendition, and that's not surprising because a lot of the G Master lenses do. This lens has great autofocus, and optically it looks amazing, and it's super, super sharp. I didn't use a Pro Mist, which is something that's rare for me. I usually use Pro Mist filters for every single photography lens that I use, and I didn't find a reason to have to use it in this particular case. Now, that might just be the sensor of the FX6, but I will say that this Sony 50mm lens has a great look, it has great color, and its autofocus is amazing, making it a really essential piece in your kit if you're somebody that's a video shooter that's looking to get a prime lens, or someone that does a lot of photography and portraits and things like that as well. Now, I had mentioned before in this video that I have the 35mm lens, and some people might ask, why would you keep a 35 and a 50mm in your bag? And the reason why is for interviews. So a lot of my work is interview work, where I will be doing corporate interviews, or I will be doing business interviews when I'm doing client work, and the 35 for me in my particular taste is a little bit too wide. I found that out when I was working on a project a couple weeks ago, and I found that the 35 was a little bit too wide, and I didn't want to have to use a clear image zoom on my FX3 or FX6, and I wanted to get something with a little bit more compression, and that was a little bit of a tighter angle. And I also do portraits on the side. I also am a professional photographer as well as working as a DP and cinematographer. So I wanted something that was a length that I was comfortable with. I built a lot of my career in photography on a 55mm lens, so a 50 seemed like a natural choice for me, which entered in this lens. Now, we are going to talk about the elephant in the room, which is its price. Now, the listed price for this lens is $2,000 US, which is about $555,000 Canadian, but it isn't a very, very expensive lens. It's $500 more expensive than its Zeiss 1.4 counterpart. It's twice the price as the Sony 55mm, which I had used most of my career, and it's also 8 times as much as the Sony f1.8 50mm full frame lens, which begs the question, why would you spend all the money for something like this when there's cheaper options? Now, what I'm gonna say about this lens and its price point is, if you're somebody that's not a working professional with client work, you're not working regularly, you're not doing a lot of portraits, or you're not doing a lot of commercial stuff, you're not doing a lot of paid work, I wouldn't recommend buying this lens. It's incredibly expensive. You could actually spend half the money and invest in your lighting packages and make other things better. There's a bunch of different things that you can buy in place of getting this 50mm lens. But in my particular situation, I do a lot of work. I have a lot of retainer clients. I'm moving around the country a lot. I'm doing a lot of portraits, and a lot of my clients have high expectations, and they match that with a higher dollar amount in terms of doing projects, which means that it's on me to get the best quality equipment to make sure I'm able to provide the value that I'm promising on that these clients are paying for, which brings me to this lens. It does have some features better than its cheaper counterparts. It's also great that it's a new technology. It's also amazing that it shoots at 1.2 if you really need those low light situations, although I'm not going to be shooting at 1.2 a lot. And when you do show up with more expensive gear and higher quality stuff, it does create the client perception that you know what you're doing and that you're bringing the best quality to the table to create projects for them that they're ultimately paying you for. So if you are somebody that is a hobbyist or you're just getting started, I don't think somebody should be purchasing this lens. But if you're somebody that is taking your work to the next level, or maybe you've picked up a few term clients and you know you're having a regular amount of money coming in every single month and you're taking freelance projects on the side, it might be justifiable to get something like this, especially with lens and how long they last. The 85mm G Master lens came out years ago, and it's still a valid lens today that holds its value. And this Sony 50mm G Master lens is going to be no different. They have a saying that's date the bodies and marry the lenses, because lenses hold their value. So for me in particular, if I'm going to have this lens for the next 4, 5, 6 years and beyond, and it's still going to hold its value to the date that I purchase it, it makes sense for me to pick it up now, start using it on my professional projects, take care of the lens, and when I ever want to sell it, I'm going to get very close to what I paid for this lens, holding its value and making sure I make a profit on the purchases that I decide to invest in for my business and myself as a content creator, freelancer, whatever you want to call it. That being said, this is the end of the video, and I'm gonna have to say goodbye to the 50mm G Master lens. This is something that I want to put in my kit. I think this is gonna last me a very, very long time, and lenses like these hold their value. The G Master line of lenses, yes, they're expensive, but they optically look amazing and they hold their value in the aftermarket. So if I ever have to say goodbye to this lens for good, when I do have it after a few years, I will be able to hold its value for me to sell again, and maybe buy the version 2 of it whenever it comes out in 20 years, because that's how long it takes Sony to come up with something sometimes. But that being said, this has to go in my bag because I have to get this back to the rental shop before they charge me for an extra day, and I don't want that. I gotta say goodbye here. This is KY, not Kai the Creative, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.